let me introduce to you our man. This guy wants to be the first male host of The View. He is not QAnon. He talks about hopium all the time. And I'm going to smack you across the face with a mackerel. Ladies and gentlemen,
smack you.
Steve Poikonen, Slow Day News is here.
Slow
News Day is here.
Have you ever wondered what it felt like to have to pick up your own teeth with a broken arm?
Not. My arm was sprained, but and they weren't my teeth. They were kind of dentures. I'm 47, Steve. You're talking to an old man here.
You know what, Pasta? I gotta say, you do an incredible Bernie Sanders impersonation. You do. I love your Bernie. It's wonderful. And I apologize to you. I don't know if you caught it on the live stream this morning. Because I realized that I only know how I sound through my own interpretation of how I hear my own voice played back to me. And I could sound very different to different ears. And Einstein said if we judged a fish by its ability to climb a tree, we would think it stupid indeed. And I feel like I may have treated you like a tree climbing fish, my friend, and I apologize for that.
You should. Because I tried to call you yesterday to say Steve Poikonen is no monk, and he doesn't look like Tony Shalhoub. In other words, I was like probably the only one in Steve Poikonen's world to laugh at your joke yesterday, while Glory was just like, "What's going on?"
Yeah, Glory and I had the same reaction.
I was laughing hysterically in the car, and I called to give you some credit. And
I you know what I thought, Steve? I said, "Holy crap, that's something Pasta would do. Make like such a boomer joke that nobody laughs at." And
that was for you, my friend. It was for you. And what my cell phone carrier has not been working since like Saturday morning. I haven't been able to make calls or receive calls or get any of that shit. Yeah. So I'm sorry. I wasn't ignoring you.
It's okay. And can I say this much? Like, the imitation about you is not so much the voice. And yeah, you're hearing your own voice through your own head echoing, right? So it sounds different. But it's not the voice I'm really trying to hit. It's your one-liners. It's your lines. They're just, nobody does it like Slow News Day. Like Steve, he has some of the best quotes.
Zingers.
You know what I'm saying? Like, especially about people in the political world.
Oh, God.
So somebody says a name and we'll always go, well, Steve Poikonen said this and this about that guy. So it's
Kyle
what
Kalinski's
you say.
My favorite.
Oh, Kyle Kalinski. He's Tom Harton's Padawan. He's trying to be the first male host of The View. It's not the voice. It's the actual words.
Look, if you can't tell me that's not accurate.
Your quotes are beyond accurate, brother. That's why I love them. Beyond.
So, we'll get into that, Steve. We're going to ask you about the left. So we're gonna.
Well,
let's
Should we? Let's want to start with the Great Reset first?
Yeah, of course.
Now, Steve, I watched the majority of your show yesterday with Glory.
I watched all of
Glory
it,
Jones.
so.
She's amazing. Hi, Glory. What's up out there? But I think you're going to give the best perspective out there on what's going on. So I grabbed that little infomercial, commercial, whatever you call that thing, and we're going to play it real quick. It's about the Great Reset because I want our audience to see it.
Yeah, our audience.
And then kind of explain exactly in your mind, in a nutshell, what Steve Poikonen thinks this is about. So let's go to the Great Reset.
The pandemic has radically changed the world as we know it, and the actions we take today as we work to recover will define our generation.
Now is the time to think what history would say about this crisis.
2020 has been challenging on a lot of levels, as economic, environmental, and societal frailties have been laid bare. But it's also proved that when we need to, we can act rapidly and restructure our lives.
Recovery from the pandemic is an opportunity. We can see rays of hope in the form of a vaccine, but there is no vaccine for the planet. Nature needs a bailout.
You don't want to go back to the status quo that you had before simply because it was the status quo that got us here.
With everything falling apart, we can reshape the world in ways we couldn't before. Ways that better address so many of the challenges we face. And that's why so many are calling for a great reset. A great reset? That sounds more like buzzword bingo masking some nefarious plan for world domination. Hands up, this kind of slogan hasn't gone down well. But all we really want to say is that we all have an opportunity to build a better world. And it's not surprising that people who've been disenfranchised by a broken system and pushed even further by the pandemic will suspect global leaders of conspiracy. But the world's not that simple. Every one of us has differing priorities, values, and ideas. That's part of why solutions are so hard to come by, and why we all need to be involved in the decision-making. Because whether it's politicians, CEOs, academics, activists, or you, we're all about getting people together, even those you may not like, to sit down at the table and develop solutions that work for all of us. But
we need enormous trust between the private sector and the public sector for this to actually work. That trust is hard to come by.
it's time for people to work together, listen to each other, and build this trust so we can move towards a better world. And we really need one. Because while the pandemic affects us all, it's clear it affects some more than others.
The first people who are hit are the people at the front, those who are vulnerable. It is those on the front line who take it first, and that is simply unacceptable.
See, at the start of 2020, 1% of the world's population owned 44% of the wealth. And since the start of the pandemic, billionaires have increased theirs by more than 25%, whilst 150 million people fell back into extreme poverty. And with climate change set to dwarf the damage caused by the pandemic, the message from 2020 should be abundantly clear.
Capitalism, as we know it, is dead. This obsession that we have had with maximizing profits for shareholders alone has led to incredible inequality and a planetary emergency.
But no one can do this alone, and top-down approaches won't get us anywhere, because everything we've learned in our work has shown us that diverse voices lead to better results. And it's for these reasons that the forum talks about something called stakeholder capitalism, which would shift businesses away from just profit. Because
if we want to change where the focus of our recovery will go, then we need a new dashboard for the new economy. And that needs to encompass people, planet, prosperity, and institutions.
Giving people a real stake in the economy and putting well-being before growth. And that's all about getting the right people in the right place at the right time.
We must rebuild our relationship with nature for the survival of the peoples and our planet.
We have a window of time which is closing, and we need everybody who cares to get together and find solutions now.
It's the people who have great ideas and who share them with others. They're the ones who are shaping the future. So if you want to be a part of the change, then tune in, turn on, and get involved. Follow the Davos Agenda, right here, online, on YouTube.
All right, Poikonen. That to some people might seem glorious, lovely, fine. I think the majority of the people, obviously, we see the thumbs down on that, or be like, come on. But in a nutshell, Mr. Poikonen, and this is why I'm so happy to have you on the show right now, because you give great perspective on these issues right here. This is why I watch you. You know what I'm saying? Tell our audience what this is in a nutshell is, but what it's really about, the cloak and dagger wise. So,
effectively, the exact same people who are responsible for wrecking the planet have decided to hijack what's left of it and rent you portions of it back.
Your mic's down a little bit, buddy.
The concept of stakeholder capitalism, when you watch that ad, by the way, you'll note that they don't actually tell you what it means. What they tell you is how you're supposed to feel about it.
Agree.
Because we will take this concept of owning nothing, but having a stake in what gets produced, and we'll call that stakeholder capitalism, and you will feel good about it because we have told you to feel good about it. That's exactly what they say in the ad. They don't say stakeholder capitalism means we have commodified nature and now we're going to sort of ransom some of it back to you, or ransom your experience to be able to spend time in nature back with you. The World Economic Forum has decided that by the year 2030, and you can hear Justin Trudeau talk about this, you can hear John Kerry talk about this, you can hear Angela Merkel and Boris Johnson all discuss UN Agenda 2030. They've decided that by 2030, there's going to be a class of owner and the rest of the world that will be managed by, you know, the good people at the World Economic Forum.
The good people
meet for our benefit, Pasta. They're doing this for our benefit. When Klaus Schwab comes out and tells you, you will own nothing and you will like it. You will eat bugs. Everything you use will be delivered by drone and you will rent it. When he tells you that, you are supposed to feel good about that. You're supposed to feel safe because the people in charge have determined that it is too dangerous for you to go certain places, that until they really get a handle on the environment, perhaps we should just, you know, stay indoors and get our groceries delivered by, you know, drone.
But who is Klaus Schwab? Could you give a little perspective to who he is? He's the architect of the Great Reset, correct?
Well, he's the guy who created and runs the World Economic Forum. Which, by the way, at the keynote for the opening of the World Economic Forum, Joe Biden delivered a speech, and it was glowing. And he discussed his cozy relationship with both Klaus and the president of China. But Klaus Schwab was he was like an engineer, and he was an economist, and when it came time to kind of, I don't know, shift the perspective of where people thought in terms of what, like, all of the Kissinger related think tanks and the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and the Bilderberg Group and the Trilateral Commission, like, as these things were getting you know, sort of brought out into the open, there was a shift in terms of where and how the world's elite met to determine our future. And the World Economic Forum became that venue. It was founded in 1998. So in terms of, you know, open societies that secretly meet to alter the course of human events, they're relatively new. But right around the time, interestingly, right around the time Project for a New American Century was founded and created, when the World Economic Forum popped up. I like broad strokes. That's kind of, if you have any more specifics, I'm happy to get into whatever. Yeah. We don't know a lot about Klaus Schwab personally. Like, he's been very, very good at limiting information about him to just what he would like out about him through some sort of public relations effort.
So I watched you and Glory, and I saw this one clip from Kirsten Gillibrand, who, when she was discussing Biden's foreign policy, and I want to play it for the audience because I want them to hear how how ridiculous and nefarious this is, and we can discuss that. No, it's the Kirsten Gillibrand. It's crap. I guess it didn't put it on there. Okay, let's just go to the second one and I'll find it. Let's go to the one on press freedoms, because this guy gets to talk about press freedoms and he's gaslighting the whole time. He's talking about we need to fight for press freedoms, but he mixes it up with censorship. And I just want the audience to hear this part.
I mean, the platforms are more than just it's not just how they're sorting news. It's also, listen, journalists are harassed via the platforms. What you saw in America a couple weeks ago, with the insurrection on Capitol Hill, was a manifestation of what happens when there is no filter. And again, a lot of that is good. The danger, of course, Adrian, is that we have to be very careful about filtering news. I mean, we all, everybody here believes in an unfettered free press, but when misinformation comes through these platforms unfettered, it leads to very dangerous things. And we saw that before, because society is losing its ability to tell. They are seeing the truth they want to see, and it goes fundamentally to what it means to be. We're talking about protecting press freedom, what it even means to be a member of the press.
Yeah, Steve. So you're gonna put that in there? I was gonna say.
Yeah.
There has been a lot of attacks. When we talk about what's been going on with these forums, they don't talk about the pandemic as much as being the big disease. They talk about authoritarianism around the world, right? And also talking about that, kind of intertwining the fact that it's the press. We have to have a free and fair press, and what it means to be the press, and all these other people who are creating this malarkey online. They want to get you away from looking at independent media, from looking at other sources of information, and just concentrate on what they want to give you. And I think a lot of the Great Reset has also been focused on that globally together to suppress the little guys' voices now. Your thoughts on that?
Oh, I mean, you're absolutely correct. And I encourage everybody to go watch that entire panel because it's 4 puppets of the narrative management machine for mid-level participants of media in general, sitting around casually talking about the best ways to censor information, and they're not outraged. They're explaining to people how to best operate a gatekeeper media structure that filters information, because unfettered information is dangerous, because then you might make up your own mind about what you're seeing and hearing, and that's not that's not good. Because your thoughts could be dangerous, but our thoughts are approved. So we need you to have the approved way of thinking before you can go forward and talk to other people about it.
Yeah. I was just going to say that it seems, fam, and Steve, that it's almost like the same thing they've been giving a taste of here in the United States as of late. And they're doing it on a grand screen, like, we're going to be the ones to decide what's the truth and what's not. You listen to us. Yeah. And they convince a lot of people who are saying, these people are just awful. We can't listen to them for their information. They're spreading misinformation.
Right.
Just listen to us. And they're doing it on a global scale. They're trying to with the Great Reset.
Yeah, because it's the West doing this. So.
And at no point in that press freedom panel is Julian Assange mentioned.
No, exactly. I was going to say that.
I know. Jeez, I got my Assange bands
at zero point. And I real quick, I wanted to go back to because I wanted people to hear this bullshit from Kirsten Gillibrand, and I know you were saying she was the blonde Hillary, and then there was the brunette Hillary, and then there was the brown Hillary with Camillary. And so,
Camillary.
But let's just hear what she said, because she's discussing Biden's foreign policy. But the way I want people to understand the way they put this, it's like sunshine and rainbows and flowers, and that's not at all what's happening.
Pull out the troops from Afghanistan and Iraq, as President Trump plans, relationship with NATO. There's so much to discuss.
Absolutely. The first thing that's changed already is that President Biden is going to reassert the United States' role in the world. I was at the Westlessness Conference, the Berlin Security Agreement Conference, and I can tell you that there was a lot of concern that America had stopped leading in the world, and that Europe and the EU and the rest, the Munich conference, Europe and the rest of the world would ignore the United States views on certain things. And that's something that Vice President Biden, when he ran for president and now as the president, is going to do. He's not only reasserted himself on global climate change with the Paris Accords, he will re-engage with the Iran nuclear deal, engage all of our allies. He will make sure that our allies know we will stand ready with them on national security. He will renew our relationships with our allies. The president's already reached out to Canada, a relationship that suffered under the Trump administration. He will be reaching out to the EU, to NATO, to assure our allies that we will once again stand with them to make sure that we are going to project leadership and strength. And I think he will have a very different approach on engagement with both the Middle East, but also with China and Russia. I think we need far more engagement that is productive with both of those countries. And I think President Biden has a very robust agenda to create international norms and more secure national security. I think he is going to engage Russia immediately on nuclear treaties. He will engage China immediately on economic issues, and to try to make sure that human rights is part of our international norms and part of our international conversations.
So just real quick, I want to give it to Steve, but I know she talked about human rights, which is it's translation, warmonger translation to we're gonna go in and interfere in all these countries, manufacture consent, coup, imperialism, etc. The same handbook that we've been talking about on the show forever. She also talks about the strengthening our presence and our allyship with our allies, and then mentions China and Russia as he's going to engage in these sort of interactions, which we know stands for like direct attacks, because we never engage with Iran, Russia, or China. And later on, they mention Venezuela, and they talk about how Venezuela is bad. All these other things that I encourage everybody to watch this entire thing at Davos, because it's scary when you know what's going on. To somebody that hasn't looked at this and is looking at it, they're like, oh, okay, like this sounds good. But like it's actually nefarious. Steve, I want to get your thoughts on what she said regarding foreign policy.
When you listen to the whole thing, they talk about this return. They keep using like the phraseology about a return to norms.
Yeah,
we're going back to the way things were. And I don't know if you guys remember or not, but we were ramping up for a Cold War with Russia and with Iran and with China. And now here we are. Like they mentioned the TPP throughout. And on that panel with Hillary Barbie, there's a Republican from Illinois named, I think, Andy Kinzinger, I think, and he's like one of the like anti-Trump, voted to impeach Trump, pro-TPP Republicans. And what they keep talking about around all of this is a reimagined TPP that doesn't include China. And my God, I mean, we're going to explode our global military presence in the next couple of years. The first thing that you hear the Norwegian politician who's moderating the thing start to add, like it's coming out of his mouth about troop withdrawals in Afghanistan. We found out that that's not going to happen.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, actually, we have his clip. I wanted to play it too.
We'll play it right here for you.
Yeah, so because the Republican, he's talking about coming together, how there's so many things we can agree on, Democrats and Republicans, but I want you guys to know this is an establishment Republican, and you're gonna notice that right away at 13 minutes and 36 seconds.
Yeah, it's going to blow your audience away. I think there's a lot that we can work together on, and quite honestly, I do think maybe we've forgotten a little bit and kind of last few years, but there is a lot Republicans and Democrats agree on overseas. First off, there are 3 Democrats and I like them all, so that's going to make headlines too. But yeah, I think, look, on the Iran deal specifically, there is some agreement, which is we do want to get back into a deal. I think the key is to make sure that deal is something that prevents Iran malign activities. Because why is it that we care about Iran having nuclear weapons? Because they're not a good player in the region, and that's going to be important. Things like reestablishing strong ties with NATO, working multilaterally is important. I think on trade policy, actually fighting trade fights with allies instead of taking on all kinds of trade fights at once, especially when it comes to protecting and defending ourselves against, unfair Chinese trade practices. And I think the other thing is to be pretty good agreement in terms of how do we go after the biggest competitor, frankly, right now, which is China. How do we defend ourselves economically, our allies, strengthen alliances, build a military that, isn't stuck in the 20th century, but can compete, whether it's in space and information and everything, to deter Chinese activity, malign activity, so that we don't end up in any kind of an armed conflict. And also on Russia. I think the policies of the last administration on Russia were good. What I didn't like was the fact that, the words spoken about Russia weren't. I mean, never a malign word said about Vladimir Putin. Well, I'm hopeful that the Biden administration can match policy actions such as stopping Nord Stream 2, which I know there's disagreement with our allies on, as well as matching that with the rhetoric, because Vladimir Putin knows he will advance in a region or anywhere just until he hits a brick wall. And we need to both verbally and physically set that brick wall there. So, yeah, there's going to be disagreements.
You're not being nasty enough to Putin, Steve. You're not being nasty enough to Putin. And
you heard him say, though, that he agreed with the policies, right?
Yeah, he did.
Because
and what
Trump
were the policies, Pasta? What were the Trump administration's policies towards
Well,
Russia?
I know that they ended nuclear agreements. You know what I'm saying? They, what was it? The INF, the International Nuclear whatever it was. I remember it was one of the longest. It was signed by Gorbachev, I believe, or Khrushchev. It was a long, old standing treaty signed with Russia to denuclearize. And Donald Trump ripped that up. He didn't do anything about that. That's why that doomsday clock was getting closer to like going off.
That's why everybody always talked about how Donald Trump was Putin's president. It didn't make any sense because policy-wise, he was actually going after Russia. And it just, to me, I just want to hear more of how is this guy allowed to say we need to amp up the rhetoric on Russia? I agree with the policies, but we need to ramp up the rhetoric.
Being nasty enough.
It's ridiculous.
To Putin.
I just can't. I don't understand.
You love Putin. Show everybody
I
your
do
shirt.
love Putin. I know. They know I love Putin.
He must be from one of those parts of Illinois where you have to run as a Republican in order to get elected.
He's a neoliberal. Yeah.
Yeah. They're all giving each other freaking tongue baths in that panel, and it's gross because you've got people who are willingly cheerleading for the empire, and they're doing it at one of the most disgusting places on the planet, which is the World Economic Forum week in Davos.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. People need to understand that we've got basically every leader in the West who's elected and in charge of their country. Yes, I'm putting
elected. Go like that for elected too.
Tina.
Go like this for elected too. Elected.
Steve, you're out of control.
He's always out of control.
We haven't even got to the bit where I'm QAnon yet, right?
No, not
yet. We'll get to that segment.
Okay, but at any rate, they have all in the last 2 years incorporated World Economic Forum talking points as part of their campaign messaging or sloganeering. And that needs to raise a forest of red flags for anyone monitoring geopolitics. And the fact that this is considered to be a don't touch topic alone, that in and of itself should have everyone in independent media going, we need to talk about this. Holy crap, did you see that we're not allowed to talk about it? We better be talking about it. I wonder what this is about. Let's look into it. And it's us. And it's Burmis, and it's Whitney, and it's Ryan. Corbett, but like that's about it.
Yeah.
And that is disturbing.
Yeah. Well,
Convo fam and audience.
Well, help us out. Let's get us even more disturbed right now, because a lot of us have invested in some time and some money and some assets into crypto. You know, we're obviously, we promote the Rokfin platform all the time. They pay their content creators with Ray, which is the cryptocurrency of the Ethereum network, which is the second biggest cryptocurrency. And a lot of us look at cryptocurrency as if us being the bank, breaking away from that monetary system of the United States of America, of the West, that's so just awful. And we see situations like what happened with the Reddit Wall Street bets, the way they just go in there and they stop stuff. In other words, you're playing the game in their rules, but you're winning, so we have to stop things. They really control the monetary system, the elites over here. So we go to crypto saying we can break away. What does this mean with this cloak and dagger great reset, which is just another form of a world dominance of taking over everything? What does this mean for cryptocurrency, and what is stakeholder capitalism, and why were they so heavily focused on it in this particular panel?
Well, the stakeholder capitalism thing is just a complete nonsense ideology that somehow you can convince people to feel like they have a stake in their economy. And the way that the global economic system is handled. I'm not kidding. Like that's what it is. They want people to feel like they have a part in their capitalism. They are not promising anything other than basically like a shift in the way that corporate America talks to you. Like they're gonna try and probably be like some sort of like awkward camp counselor buddy or something like that. You know, like, hey Tiger, you know,
hey Tiger,
good to see you. Glad you're a part of the team sport. You know, like shit like that. But what they're delivering is you will eat bugs, you will own nothing and like it.
Yeah.
Everything you use, you rent.
Yeah. What about the crypto, though? How can they get a hold of this? Can they grab this? Can they take it away from us?
Of course. Absolutely. Yes. And that's why people who are a part of the cryptocurrency movement need to become activists over it. Any system can be corrupted and co-opted. Any system. That doesn't mean that the blockchain itself is bad. It just means that we need safeguards. And the only way that we're going to get safeguards is if we come together to make them. You know, we can't demand them because the demands fall on deaf ears. The Stanford study years ago proved that. What we can do, though, is as much as possible create our own systems. Where it stands right now, though, which is incredibly interesting to me at any rate, it is that on Monday morning, Davo time, Swiss time, they had a panel called Resetting Digital Currencies. We talked about this on the show yesterday. So if you watched yesterday, I'm gonna sum it up pretty quick. Basically, what the woman said is they needed to have a shift in trust from what she referred to as the asset class, from the traditional market, which is the stock market, to the digital market. Less than a day later, there was a significant reason for the asset class to lose confidence and trust in the traditional market with this GameStop and Reddit and all of that. It is interesting to me that they called the shot, essentially. And that doesn't mean that people shouldn't take delight in the fact that some hedge fund managers got fucked. Like, oh my God, dude, dance over that. Please, that's great. In fact, create a brand new reboot for Occupy over it and include every outlet of the oligarchy. You know, I mean, honestly, like we should be occupying in front of news outlets. We should be occupying in front of YouTube or Google or Alphabet or Palantir, and all of these places. This should be taking place.
We don't listen to QAnoners though, buddy. So take it easy.
Well, and that's the thing. Less than a month ago, less than 3 weeks ago, Whitney was on Slow News Day, and she was making the rounds at some other shows that will actually, are brave enough to have her on. And she said, look, going forward, as the internet itself becomes more censored and as more censorship spreads throughout all forms of the media landscape, any information that runs counter to the official narrative, that breaks it, that helps expose it, is going to be lumped in as, it's just QAnon. This is QAnon sense. It is. It's QAnon sense. Don't listen to it. Don't pay attention to it. It's a conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
And that's what they've been doing. They did that to you. I don't know if you can just pull up the latest video he has. It has a warning that said it basically calls them a QAnon. We're going to show it in the screen here in a minute. But I was watching that yesterday, and then I saw you guys bring it up. And it's ridiculous because you've been a debunker of QAnon. You've constantly made fun of them. For people who don't know that, that's what you've done. And it's crazy to me, but it's not surprising because we have been called QAnon by people who should know better for questioning the election, because all of a sudden questioning the election became a QAnon thing, even though we have been questioning the election way before Trump and QAnon was even a thing. So it's just really weird how you can't question anything or you're a conspiracy theorist. It's really part of the whole plan. And I want to ask you, Steve, what you know, a lot of info has come out that QAnon is a psy-op, and I've always believed that, and so have you. Can you tell people why? Why that would be? Why would QAnon be a psy-op? Why would they do this?
Well, I mean, look at what it did, and look at what has happened since Q happened. And by the way, when Q began, and when this whole phenomenon started in fall of 2018. I came out and said, this is bullshit. And this, and a limited hangout. And, this is an intelligence operation. There is a 3-letter agency that is, recruiting people to post as Q, and what they would like to do, what the hope is, and what happened, was the portion of the right that would have been most activated over the course of the 4 years where lockdowns happened, where we almost had the Insurrection Act get initiated, where we had the Defense Spending Act actually put into place, where we had nearly 2/3 of all money that has been printed in the history of the entire United States printed, where we had the 3 largest upward transfers of wealth in recorded human history take place, where we had, for the legitimate anti-interventionist part of the right that was in the activism community, they let it pass that all of the forever wars continued, that the drone program ramped up, that we had failed coup after failed coup in a number of different countries and a few successful ones. All of these things pacified and tempered the most active and most likely to become active segment of the right. They got them to trust the state. They turned all these people into statists. Everyone who for the last 8 years of Barack Obama before that was going, herder, you're a statist, oh my God, you're a statist. Yeah, all of those people got sucked up into this. Donald Trump is a white hat. I can trust his government. I can trust the government. I can trust the government because I trust the plan.
Yeah. Wow. Hopium, like you said, they sheep-herded people in.
Well, and it's a distraction because it also, on top of doing all of that, what QAnon did was put throw the baby out with the bathwater for a lot of people. Meaning, you mentioned elections. Oh no, you must be a QAnoner. Oh, you mentioned the Great Reset. Oh, you must be a QAnoner.
Epstein.
And Epstein, child trafficking. Oh, you must be a QAnoner. So the things that are actually worrisome that we should look into have now been dismissed as things that are completely conspiracy theory, and that is a perfect operation by these three-letter agencies, 100%, because it discredits any sort of questioning.
No. I was going to say, but while we're still on this topic and talking about this, I've been hearing the term accelerationism, right? But I've been hearing a lot of neo-progressives using it in the form of, like, the Boogaloo Boys are trying to accelerate a civil war. I'm like, that's not how the word's used. Let me bring on my man, Steve Poikonen, to give the definition to that lovely word. Go ahead, buddy.
The way I see it is we're in a period of accelerationism that began with the election of Donald Trump, which, in my opinion, had to happen. And this is a conversation I've had with Last American Vagabond. We had it a little bit this morning. But the last time he was on, we got to flesh it out fairly well. And I can come back to that. The overall larger point to a period of accelerationism being we are now headed full steam to achieve UN Agenda 2030, this complete, owner class versus the rest of the entire world population that can't really do much about it because they're locked into smart cities and can't go anywhere without their vaccine passport. And this is all, this is from the paper on it. This is not me making this up. Please go read that stuff, by the way. It's share in my horror.
We will.
But we are now going to see the rollout of things like, if you look at the amount of wealth that was just created, we're going to see a backlash from that. The economy has been propped up on really just termite-ridden stilts for far too long now. And I think you guys would agree with that. We've had a false economy for a number of years now. Those chickens are going to come home to roost. And
right.
The goal of all of it being this complete, as Jason Burmis puts it, track, trace, database system where our every move has been mapped, cataloged, surveilled, broken down, where we have our digital dollar, where we have our UBI that's attached to our social credit score, where we're only allowed to go certain places if we have taken certain things and put them into our bodies. Like that is what we're accelerating towards.
Exactly.
And that's what we should all be joining together to resist, regardless of who we voted for once or twice or for forever.
Yeah. Thank you for clearing that up, because I think a lot of people neo-progressives try to take that word and try to always, whatever word it is, whataboutism, they use it for their own need. You know what I'm saying? So they did the same thing.
Yeah. So speaking of that, Steve, just to wrap up this segment, because we hear you on your show, unfiltered, talking about how the progressives and the boutique left is what some of us call them. You said that they've taken off their training wheels. And in reference to everything that's been going on and where we are now, what do you mean by that? And what is the point of these people and the squad?
So the training wheels thing is that I have called progressives neoliberals with training wheels for a number of years. And you see it borne out. You do. If you look at what has happened to the squad from their original marketing, which was, the lone progressive voice in the wilderness here to take on the establishment and wrestle away the power that Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer have. And now they have 100% come out as and shown themselves to be standard politicians in the Democratic Party who are going to toe the line for imperialism every fucking always, who are going to support the party leadership if they want to keep their fucking jobs. And that's the end of that story. And we've seen the same sort of journey and exposure in a lot of the progressive media, who are all talking the exact same talk as their pet progressive politician, who is spouting 100% mainstream narratives and intelligence agency talking points. And you've got these, oh God, dude, I just bad. I mean, lazy, bad pundits who have fucking, the closest they've ever been to an actual protest was watching it from your live stream.
Steve, do you think that post-partisan unity is the only way humanity has a chance? I mean, let's be honest over here. If we keep going down this path of following these progressives who said they were like anti-establishment on the fight, these leaders, and yet they just joined them. I mean, is this the only way we have a chance for humanity to survive? Sorry.
So I have always said on my show and anywhere else that I can that I really think that the only way for humanity to not just survive, but survive sustainably and prosper is for some sort of collective ascension. And what that looks like, I'm happy to sit down and explain to anyone with the right amount of psilocybin.
Yeah.
I'll conduct a seminar.
Sounds great.
Do it on the low. No, I'm just kidding. At any rate,
on Rokfin.
But yeah, I mean, what that means is a recognition that the systems that we've been trying throughout humanity have largely failed us, that our isms have failed us, that what we need is a completely different way of structuring the universe, or at least the part of it that we inhabit. And where that starts is by recognizing that there are several things that we have been led to believe that do not hold up to their marketing, and we would like them to do that. Specifically, the first freedoms that we, all agreed that we had, that were inalienable, that were not voted on, that were not decided upon by our betters to only apply to a few people, but our first freedoms are post-partisan. They don't have a political ideology. They're not red team, they're not blue team, they're not green team, they're not yellow team. They're not. They are without partisanship. And until we can unite to secure those things, we don't get to have a conversation about red team, blue team, fucking purple team. We don't, because we don't have the things that we have previously guaranteed ourselves.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So until we make good on that guarantee on these post-partisan things, we have to put aside political ideology. We can have that conversation. We can hash out partisan issues and policy points after we secure these first freedoms. I'm happy to do that.
Yeah,
I am.
By
but
the
until
way,
then, you're intellectually masturbating.
Steve.
And look, man, some of y'all should not.
But Trotsky said,
because you're embarrassing yourself.
They are.
Because we can all see what you're working with.
Yeah.
And it's embarrassing.
I think the gig is up.
Yeah,
I think the light has been shined, bro. And you were saying something about Trotsky.
I was just making fun of them. Like, but Trotsky, like they try to frame. They obviously haven't read anything because Walsh is over there trying to argue with Marxism that Joe Biden is who you should vote for, and it's just to make this shit up to intellectualize themselves as superior, and that is partly why they were so angry that somebody like Jimmy Dore, who is like not that, was even masking all these people off, and even like just in general, just the fact that we were just talking about this before you came on. We were saying like, I'm not saying I'm going to change my ideology because I'm uniting with somebody who's a libertarian, but after we defeat what we need to defeat, then we can have an even platform to actually discuss this exchange of ideas, because right now we don't have that, and so people need to understand that.
Yeah, I say we listen to the wise words of Andrew Zygmunt Floyd. What's it? Smith, right? Andrew Zygmunt Smith.
Freud.
Sorry, Andrew Smith. He said we start with the guillotine, because once we do that, then we can work out our differences. We start with the guillotine, and that's why I wore the shirt today. Vegan, but we'll eat the rich. Steve, tell everybody where they can find you and where they can find more of your listen to more of your beautiful voice you have.
SlowNewsDayShow.com. And you're really, Ryan, the last American Vagabond, was on this morning. He reiterated this. Go to the website first. Make that your first stop. And then figure out what it is, or where you'd like to go. But so SlowNewsDayShow.com. I'm on Twitter at SlowNewsDayShow. Rokfin, I am on the Rokfin. We just hit, I think, 2,500 subscribers.
That's where I watch, baby.
Very much.
I watch on Rokfin.
That follower or whatever it is. Please support media on that platform.
Don't ever let me talk about Sam Cedar again. We live in a cartoon. You're missing the fucking. We live in a fucking cartoon, because we do. But that's Steve. Steve makes up the best zingers. Absolutely. Please check him out. Also, they have Action for Assange, where they do the vigils that we have also been a part of. We didn't get to talk about Assange this time because it would take another 2 hours. But
we'll have him back on again.
Yeah, we'll have him back on.
On.
Thank you, Steve, so much.
We love you, brother. We really do.
Really
keep rocking in the free world. Get your Assange bracelets out, baby.
Plus, I'm gonna replace you with Steve.
Oh my Lord, he can't cook like me. He can do all the work around the house, but he can't cook. That's why.
Hey yo, you've never had a meal I've made.
Oh shit!
What are you gonna cook me elk that you killed with your buck
Jesus
knife?
Christ.
Please, somebody.
I mean, I do cook I do some fantastic things with elk. I make this like homemade biscuits and gravy, right?
That's Steve Poikonen from Slow Days News. Don't start with your biscuits and gravy with elk, pal. You know you're talking to a vegan here.
Three vegans. So
Tres veganos.
We're real anti-imperialists here at the couch.
Yeah. Steve, we really do love you. We love the work you do. It's so important what you guys do over at Action for Assange. Check him out of that too as well. He's got 2 partners over there that are awesome. Several partners, I should say, including Sleepy Josh running stuff from behind the realm.
Glory J. Jones.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Steve. We love you, brother.
Thank you. I love you guys. You take care.
Cool.